Greetings, church, to you wherever you may be this morning from the meeting house of the First Baptist Church in America. I miss you. It has been a while, and I miss seeing your faces. I miss singing with you. I miss hugging your necks. I know that we are doing the right thing by meeting remotely, and we will continue to do so until it is safe to do otherwise, but I miss you individually and all together, and look so forward to the day when we will be able to be physically together again. But until then, I am grateful for the ways that we can meet together online and virtually connect. In the midst of these days, we continue to be church. Thank you for looking out for and loving on one another in so many ways. Thank you for ensuring that the work of church continues through your gifts. We as a denomination are in the midst of our one great hour of sharing offering. And this offering goes to support disaster relief, development projects, and refugee ministries of the American Baptist Churches and its partners. And so we appreciate your generosity at this time because these missions are ongoing and need your support. Thank you for sending your prayer requests in by phone and message to the church office. Our prayer tree is in full effect, and we have been lifting these up in prayer. I invite you now to gather yourself as we enter into this time of meditation and reflection. I invite you to assume a posture of prayer, and we will begin this service together. If you are comfortable, I invite you to close your eyes, to relax your body. Notice if you might be holding your hand in a fist. See how that feels differently than opening your palm. I invite you to breathe in God's love, to breathe out whatever may be an impediment to your entering fully into this time of worship. Let God's love permeate your being. Our God who always listens, you who hears the birds singing in the topmost branch, you who knows the sobbing deep, we know that you are the heart of compassion and that you show us how to live in compassion. We pray that you would forgive us when we are indifferent or ignorant or willfully deceitful or outwardly contentious. We pray that you would guide us to trust each other, open our hearts in expressing love, deepen our humility, help us to show remorse for our wrongdoings, and accept your love for us and for others. God, in the midst of this crisis, we bring before you the brave women and men who are closest to the sick and the suffering. For doctors and nurses, orderlies, chaplains, and ambulance drivers. We give thanks for these men and women and all who prepare and deliver their food, who clean workplaces and ensure safe transport home. God of life, hear our thanks as we see new opportunities in the midst of restrictions. Hear our prayers for perseverance as we endure closed doors and lost income in the midst of the pandemic. Fill us with your abundant love as we wait and watch as communities grounded in your hope. We know that you are the God of all possibility. We pray that you give us wisdom, imagination, and courage to create and sustain the heaven that you have called us to inhabit here on earth. Bring your mercy to the people of the world. We pause now in silence for all of those who are in mourning. We pray for your comfort and your peace. We lift up our joys. There are many, even in the midst of the trials and all our concerns. And help us to remember that you would not have us despair, that you hear and speak comfort. We celebrate those working towards life and dignity for all people and creation. May we live in your way and do your will and know your peace that passes all understanding. We pray now in the manner that Jesus taught us, saying, Creator God, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. Amen.
Mother's Day Proclamation, Julia Ward Howe, Boston, 1870.
Arise then, women of this day, arise all women who have hearts. Whether your baptism be of water or of tears, say firmly.
We will not have questions answered by irrelevant agencies. Our husbands will not come to us reeking with carnage for caresses and applause. Our sons shall not be taken from us to unlearn all that we have been able to teach them of charity, mercy, and patience. We, the women of one country, will be too tender of those of another country to allow our sons to be trained to injure theirs. From the voice of a devastated earth, a voice goes up with our own. It says, disarm, disarm. The sword of murder is not the balance of justice.
Blood does not wipe our dishonor, nor violence indicate possession, as men have often forsaken the plough and the anvil at the summons of war. Let women now leave all that may be left of home for a great and earnest day of council.
Let them meet first as women to bewail and commemorate the dead. Let them solemnly take counsel with each other as to the means whereby the great human family can live in peace, each bearing after his own time the sacred impress, not of Caesar, but of God. In the name of womanhood and humanity, I earnestly ask that a general congress of women without limit of nationality may be appointed and held at some place deemed most convenient and the earliest period consistent with its objects, to promote the alliance of the different nationalities, the amicable settlement of international questions, the great and general interests of peace. Chapter 4, verses 1 through 4 from the New International Version. The mountain of the Lord. In the last days, the mountain of the Lord's temple will be established as the highest of the mountains. It will be exalted above the hills, and peoples will stream to it. Many nations will come and say,
Come, let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the temple of the God of Jacob. He will teach us his ways, so that we may walk in his paths. The law will go out from Zion, the word of the Lord from Jerusalem.
He will judge between many peoples and will settle disputes for strong nations far and wide. They will beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation will not take up swords against nation, nor will they train for war anymore.
Everyone will sit under their own vine and under their own fig tree, and no one will make them afraid, for the Lord Almighty has spoken.
Amen.
150 years ago, Mother's Day began, not with brunch, but with an international call for peace. After the Civil War, and upset by its tragic effects, and as a protest to the carnage of that conflict, the American Julia Ward Howe, who also penned the Battle Hymn of the Republic, challenged women who had lost their sons or their spouses to join her in what she called a Mother's Day for Peace in Boston in 1870. She believed that peace and equality were the two most important causes of the world and hoped to inspire women to come together across national lines to recognize their commonality beyond their divisions and together to find peaceful resolution to their conflicts. Today, we honor those who mother us, the ones who have loved us into being in the original sense, by calling for a great and general Congress of Peace. One of the many things this virus has made abundantly clear is our interconnectedness. This illness does not see borders, and this has been revealed in the ways that we have seen how the fate of one person affects us all. It's been kind of fascinating to see what people have done in the immediate aftermath of this conflict. During this pandemic, stores have seen a run on beans, toilet paper, guns, and alcohol. That says something about who we are. But we heard this morning from the prophet Micah talking about turning weapons into garden tools. And this does not happen easily. Both Micah and Isaiah talk about beating swords into plowshares, and that takes a lot of muscle and time and sweat. To make a shovel from a gun means first, at least here in 2020, decommissioning it with the police, then adding heat, more than 2,000 degrees of controlled flame. Too hot and the steel will just melt off. Too cool and the steel will crack under the hammer. There's this sweet spot in the middle where transformation can take place. But it takes more than one heating for this process to complete. The barrel has to go into the forge and be brought out for shaping and go in again and again, repeating the process of heat and hammering and time until it is repurposed and reshaped and transformed. As a planet, it feels like we are in a refiner's fire without a clear idea of when we will be out of the flames. We don't know how much the prophets knew about blacksmithing, but they were well aware that heat and pressure is required to turn weapons of death into tools of life. Times of intense pressure where the heat is turned up on us can be transformative. And the prophets knew that with enough holy fire, both metal and people can be reshaped. And we know that prophets aren't soothsayers who predict the future. Rather, they are holy provocateurs who proclaim the world as it could be. They invite us to dream another world and then work through heat and pressure to create alternate presents. And the prophet Micah describes this holy movement that we are invited to join, where God's people forge life and nourishment from death and destruction. Further, the prophet says that in the end, nation will no longer rise up against nation. The world will no longer make war. We're offered this vision beyond battlefields and landmines and mass shootings. But the prophet is also clear that this will begin with us, the people. Peace is begun by us and sustained by us. When we refuse to lift up tools of death and when we refuse to be instruments of death and instead begin the intense work of transformation. Early in these pandemic days, my son said to me, "Well, Mama, there's at least a good side to this. There won't be any war while this is happening because we're all fighting the same illness." Would that he were right. Reminded me of what Paul said in his letter to the Hebrews, saying that faith is believing in what we hope for and about being certain of that which we cannot yet see. Faith refuses to accept that the way things are is how they will always be. Recently, Sonia Renee Taylor observed that we will not go back to normal after this because normal never was. Our pre-corona existence was never normal other than that we normalized greed and inequity, exhaustion, depletion, extraction, disconnection, confusion, rage, hoarding, hate, and lack. My friends, we are being given an opportunity to stitch a new garment, one that will fit all of humanity and nature. Because right now, on average in this country, 105 people die from gun violence every day. Every day. Some of it's self-inflicted suicide, others are accidents, still more are intentional harm done to others. This is not the world that God would have us inhabit. We can do better. We can imagine more, and then we can turn up the heat to make it happen. A couple of years ago, people of faith across Rhode Island joined together with other coalitions, began to pressure our legislators to make needed changes to bring us closer to where we know we could be as a state. People worked together with the police and with other leaders to disable weapons and begin to turn them into garden tools. One day, I walked into my office and found 4 bayonets just stretched out on my desk. And through the labors of a local artist, Howie Schneider, sometime later, we ended up with this pretty magnificent spade that we have used to plant sunflowers of hope in our church garden and elsewhere. So thanks to Howie for this pretty exquisite piece of work. This year again, we are planning to do the same, and you are invited to participate. Because as the prophet Micah made clear, it's not enough to eliminate instruments of death. We also have to replace it with things that nurture life. Because in so many ways, the opposite of a bullet is a seed. And this spring, we will again plant sunflowers of peace all over, here at the meeting house and wherever you are. And so if you need some sunflower seeds, let me know, and I will get them to you. And these flowers will begin to bloom this summer and this autumn. And where might we be then? In addition to being beautiful, these sunflowers will feed people and animals. I also invite you to spread this beauty elsewhere by using IPDs, improvised planting devices. We have these here where you can put your seed in a bit of a clay casing with a little bit of soil, and you can make your own IPDs and chuck them into vacant spaces behind chain link fences and neglected spots so that this beauty can begin to crop up all over in a few months. We know that transformation is possible. We see it all around us. During this pandemic, a number of local industries have begun to retool themselves. Local distilleries here in the state have begun making hand sanitizer, and clothing factories have traded athleisure wear for hospital gowns. God calls us to consistently bind up the brokenhearted, to heal that which is wounded in our hearts and in our communities. And this is going to take all the courage and imagination and the pressure that we can bring to bear. If we believe that ours is a God of transformation, then we need to begin to live in ways that prove this true. Live in a way that generates life rather than exploiting it. Refuse to believe that this is the best that we can do. We don't have to go back to business as usual when this is over. Just because we can do a thing doesn't mean that we have to. And yeah, it's going to be hard. Transformation of steel and human hearts takes a lot of work and sweat and heat and attention. On this Mother's Day, all of us can attest to the people in our lives that have helped love us, each of us, into being, into the people that we are. It's a process that takes time and that it's worth the effort. Transformation is a process. It's not a moment, it's a movement that we have to nurture over and over again. You have to keep at it. You don't parent once and call it quits. Micah casts this beautiful vision, saying that people will beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks, and nation won't take up sword against nation nor train for war anymore. Everyone will sit under their own vine and fig tree, and no one will make them afraid. Can you imagine this? Where we all have enough to eat and shade to enjoy it in, where no one is scared? This will take some time. You don't pop a seed into the ground and see a full-blown tree the next day. You don't put a sword into the microwave and in a few minutes pull out a plow. Change takes time, but we are tasked with keeping up the heat, tilling the soil, and watering what's been planted. We know that all of this takes more time often than we would imagine. Flattening this curve will take longer than any of us would like, and yet we are holding steady for the greater good. It takes a lot of faith to believe that something or someone can be other than what it is now. We may look around us and think we can't do any better. Perhaps we can't imagine something other than what is. But isn't that what a gardener does every time a seed is buried? Isn't that what parents do when they don't give up on a cranky 3-year-old or a maddening 13-year-old or a grown child who can't quite get it together? Isn't this what God does every time we are embraced with the love that transforms us into who we can become? Romans says that we are not to conform to this world, but rather be transformed by the renewing of our minds and our hearts. We are to transform ourselves from conflict to cultivation, from weapons to tools, from fear into feasts. And faith allows us to see the world both as it is and as it could become. Before every social movement, people said, that's impossible. And then after it happens, people say, that was inevitable. So it is with this, beloved. And God is inviting us to participate in this transformation of our hearts and of our world, turning death into life. But this isn't just passive waiting, but full-time participation. When your mother was waiting for you to be born, she didn't just sit around passively. She nurtured her body and prepared the world that you would enter. And so it is with those of us who would be midwives for a transformed earth. What we do in these pandemic days will resonate long after we are gone. And if we believe that the prophets spoke the truth and didn't just cast misty fictions, then we need to begin to enact it now by adjusting our lives for the future that we know is coming. Begin living in a way that makes it true now. Thoughts and prayers are crucial, but God doesn't only want us to pray with our eyes shut. We also need to pray with our eyes wide open and our hearts wide open, and with all of our muscles and sweat and imagination and time. If you believe in a God of transformation, then live like a changed people. This is a process where each will come to sit under their own vine and fig tree beyond fear. Jesus calls us to love God and one another, to not be anxious or afraid, because fear does not get the final word. Love does. And life can. To be able to sit at peace without fear is not some mythic state we attain and then just remain there, but it's going to take constant tending even once we arrive, just like a garden. You don't just pull weeds once. The making of heaven come to earth is a process and a way of being. It's an investment in the world that we know can be. So seeing children to become adults, seeds to mature plants, and guns into shovels takes time and effort, and it's worthwhile, sacred work. So roll up your sleeves and get to it. Build the world that the prophets spoke of and that we hope for. You are the ones who are going to make this happen. The book of Genesis begins in a garden, and the book of Revelation ends in one as well, but this time the garden is in the middle of a city where the gates are left open and children play without fear. So turn up the heat. Get your iron in the fire. Lay down your sword and your shield and study war no more. Get your shovel in hand. Get ready to feed the world. Amen. God bless you with discomfort and easy answers, half-truths and superficial relationships, so that you may live deeply within your heart. May God bless you with anger at injustice, oppression, and exploitation of people, so that you may work for justice, freedom, and peace. May God bless you with tears to shed for those who suffer pain, rejection, hunger, and war, so that you may reach out your hand to comfort them and to turn their pain into joy. And may God bless you with enough foolishness to believe that you can make a difference in the world, so that you can do what others claim cannot be done, to bring justice and kindness to all our children. So arise then, people of this day. Arise, all who have hearts. Live fully and love each other as God loves you. Be known by your love. And if you are able, reach out and thank the ones who loved you into being. So go and pass this peace onward. Amen.